All right, so let's get around to actually coding this. I've gone ahead and pre-filled out some of the default settings that I like to use. You've already seen them from previous strategy videos in this series. I'm calling this one Donchian / Keltner channel mean reversion for the strategy name. And that's just because what we're going to do is we're going to allow the user to pick either Donchian channel or Keltner channel from a dropdown. And then I've gone ahead and created comments to set the overall structure. So first is this is going to be first strategy where we allow the user to specify inputs. And then after they specified inputs, we need to calculate channels based on those inputs. So there'll be two calculations there, one for Donchian channels and one for Keltner channels. And then, of course, for the filter we added, we need to calculate the IBS. Then we need to actually execute the orders. And then lastly, we're going to plot the channel high and low for visual debugging, just so that you can see the channel on the chart rather than just assuming that the trades taken by the strategy are correct. And so this is going to be the first step toward teaching you how to build indicators as well, because most indicators pretty much rely on plotting in order to show things on the chart. So let's go ahead and get started. The first input that we want the user to have is the ability to choose between a Donchian channel or a Keltner channel. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable called channel type. And then this is, of course, going to be an input. And then when you put a period after the word input, it's going to give you several options. And these options are what the user has to choose from. So with other indicators, you might have noticed that when you're specifying the user inputs, some fields only allow you to put in a color, some fields only allow you to put in a number, and some fields might only allow you to put in, I don't know, like a time frame. In this case, we want the user to specifically choose between a dropdown of 2 words, so it's going to be a string. The first parameter here is the default, and since we liked the Keltner channel strategy better, we're gonna put Keltner here. And then title, this one is what shows up on the left here. So time frame is the title, length is the title, source is the title, and we're just gonna call this channel type. And then normally, if you just created this as your input, the user would be able to type any word that they wanted. But we specifically want them to choose between 2 options. So we're going to add options, and the options have to be in square braces. Since this is a string, each option has to be in quotes, and then options are going to be separated by a comma. So the options are just going to be Donchian and Keltner. And then we also want them to be able to customize the Donchian channel and the Keltner channel. So a Donchian channel is just an in-bar lookback. So I'm going to create a variable called Donchian length. And then that is going to be a number because it has to be a whole number. So we'll put the word int. By default, in the strategy, I used a 15-day look back. So we use 15, and then we'll title it Donchian channel length. Keltner channels are made up of a basis, which is usually an EMA, and then an ATR, average true range, looking back some amount of days, some number of days, and a standard deviation away from that ATR. So we're going to create 3 variables here. One is going to be Keltner basis length. This is basically the length of the EMA. It's also going to be a whole number, so an int. By default, that's going to be 20. We're going to title it Keltner channel basis length, and then put EMA just in parentheses, just so that we know it's an EMA. And then, of course, the next one is the ATR, so Keltner ATR, also technically a length. This is how many days back that it's being used to calculate the average true range. So obviously, we want to use whole numbers here because we want whole bars back. And I mentioned in the strategy video that by default, a Keltner channel uses an ATR lookback of 10 days. One thing that I discovered is that when I originally coded the strategy, I made a mistake and used 20. And so the results that you saw in the previous video are actually using a 20-day look-back period for the ATR. And that 20-day look-back period actually produced a better strategy, like higher net profit, higher profit factor, higher win rate than the default 10-day ATR look-back period. And I don't think that's I don't think that's unintentional. I think most people use defaults, and so by using something a little bit non-standard, you might actually have an edge. So we're actually going to put 20 here. Of course, this is an input, so you can change it later and play around with it. We're going to go ahead and title it as Keltner channel ATR look back. And this actually does need to be in quotes. I forgot to do that. And then lastly, we need standard deviations. And we just do standard deviation. And then this is actually going to be a float because an int requires whole numbers. Float allows for decimal places. So we're going to, by default, use 2 standard deviations away. But since it's a float with put 2.0, we title this Keltner channel ATR multiplier. And then we want to specify the increment that we're going to allow. And so that's going to be with the step argument here. This basically means that the user can go to like do 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, but they can't do like 2.05 as the increment. So those are all the user inputs that we're going to create. And again, the user inputs are what's going to show up here in this inputs section. And then we need to actually do the calculations. So first we need to check what type of channel did the user specify. So that's going to be if channel type equals double equals, because that's how you do a comparison. Then we do the Donchian channel calculation if they chose Donchian. If they didn't choose Donchian, then we're going to calculate a Keltner channel instead. So let's go ahead and create the logic for a Donchian channel. Well, actually, before we create the logic, since we want to plot the upper and lower band later, we're actually going to need to store that as a variable outside of the if statement. So if we create a variable here called upper band, I don't want to talk too much about scoping, but basically this variable, if it was created here, it will only exist in here. And so later when we get to plotting, it's not gonna, we can't use the values that we calculated. So the way to fix that is actually just declare the value outside upper band. We're declaring it as a float just to basically let TradingView or PineScript know that it's going to allow, or we want to allow for decimal places. And then the initial value is going to be not available, which basically means no value. You could set to 0, I guess, but technically 0 is a value, whereas NA is not a value on the chart. And then, of course, a channel has a lower band as well. So we're going to do this. So now here we need to calculate the upper band and lower band. And since these already exist as variables, we're not going to use equals, but we have to use colon equals. So equals basically means I'm creating this for the first time, and then it's going to be set to some value after the equal sign. And so you'll see that's true for all of our user inputs. But if you're going to reuse the value, you do colon equals, which basically means I'm acknowledging that this variable already exists, but I just want to change the value of that variable. And so that's what we want to do here. We're going to be setting the value of the upper band and changing it from the default, which is not available, to an actual value here. So PineScript includes some built-in functions for math calculations and also for things that are commonly used, like the EMA and ATR. And so really what we're going to do here is we're going to type TA, which is going to invoke the, I think it's technically the technical analysis library in PineScript. and then we're going to call ta.highest. So if you read here, it's going to take one argument, which is the number of bars you're going to look back, and it's going to report the highest value for that number of bars back. So we don't want to hard code 15 because we want the user to be able to play around with that number. So we're going to put Donchian length in here. So this is going to calculate the highest number or highest price value, some number of bars back that's equal to the Donchian length, which is what the user set. Now we're going to actually delay the calculation by 1 bar, or rather we're going to shift the calculation by 1 bar back. So the reason why we're going to do this is because if the market is currently open and the daily bar has not closed yet, it's actually going to be calculating this upper band, including today's intraday prices, which is not what we want because we don't know what the value of the daily bar is for the close, because the close of today hasn't happened yet if the market's open. So similar to how you can get yesterday's open or close just by doing this. This is basically saying shift it 1 bar back. We're also going to do the same thing here. So this is saying get the highest value for the Donchian length look back period, but don't include today, start from yesterday. That way we don't include today's intraday prices. And then of course for the lower band, if we need to do the same thing, except it's going to be ta.lowest Donchian length, and then we're going to shift it back by one day. So Keltner channels, like I said, they are composed of 3 things. So the first one is the basis, which we're not going to reuse this variable outside of this else section, so we can just create it here. We don't need to create it outside. Basis is going to be the EMA. So TA actually allows you to just calculate an EMA, and it's going to require 2 arguments. The first is the source, and the second is the look back period or the length. So EMAs are typically calculated based on the close of a bar. So that's what we're going to type. There are other EMAs that you can do, like you can do high minus low divided by 2 to get the midpoint of a bar, and then make an EMA of bar midpoints. But typically EMAs are calculated based on bar closes. So that's the source. It's going to be each bar close. And then the length, of course, is going to be whatever the user wants to set here. By default, that's going to be 20, but we don't want to hard code 20 in case you want to change it later. And then it's the same thing as with the Donchian channel. We don't want to be including today's current price. So I know we typed close in here, but if the market is open, close is actually going to be changing like every second to whatever the current market price is. And so we want to not use today's price if the market is still open. And so we want to do a Keltner channel calculation only for the previous day, or starting from the previous day, I should say. And then next is going to be the ATR look back. Or rather, it's not the ATR look back, it's actually just the ATR value for a given look back period. And so that is actually also built in, TA-ATR, and then it's going to give you the average true range of some number of bars back. And so we could hard code that to 20, but again, that would defeat the whole point of allowing the user to pick. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to calculate the ATR, but not include today's ATR in case the market is open. Then now that we have those 2 values, we can set the upper band. That's going to be, so the upper and lower band of a Keltner channel are going to be standard deviations of the ATR away from the basis. So the upper band is going to start from the basis, and then you're going to add the ATR times the standard deviation amount. So that's going to be whatever the user chose here. And then the lower band is going to be the basis which is the 20 EMA minus the ATR times Keltner standard deviation. Okay, so now we have the Keltner channel and the Donchian channel calculated. Last thing we do is calculate IBS. So IBS equals close minus low divided by high minus low. Okay, so now for the strategy execution, our long condition is just did today close lower than the lower band? And then our exit condition is just did today close higher than the previous day's high? So now, if our long condition is met, then we do strategy dot entry. Now we have to give some sort of, I guess, name, or I guess we'll just call this channel mean reversion long. And then what actually specifies the direction is this direction argument, which is just going to be strategy.long. So that specifies that we're going long. And then if the exit condition is true, then we tell PineScript we want to close a position that is called channel mean reversion. Channel mean reversion long. And if this is a benign call, because let's say this didn't exist, this would still work and not close anything because there was no entry, or there is no entry to close. So last thing, we want to do plotting. That way we can actually see the upper and lower bands on the chart. Oh, right, I forgot the long condition is actually a little bit different here. See here. So if the what we actually need to do here is if channel type equals Donchian oh, right, okay. What we need to do here is long condition equals false. Okay. Yeah, we actually have to differentiate here because it's gonna be it's gonna depend on whether close, because if we do the Keltner, we also need to have IBS, so IBS less than, and then we need to create a user input. Let's go ahead and call this IBS threshold. And then this is going to be a decimal. I believe 15% was the, yes, IBS threshold. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. So there we go. So if the user chose a Donchian channel, then that's our long condition. And if they didn't, then they chose the Keltner channel. We need the IBS threshold in there. Okay, so now what we need to do is plot the bands. So we already have lower bands saved. We want to give it a color. I'll just use color equals color.green, just because that's the bottom and also our long signal. We're going to title it lower band. And we also want to plot the upper band. Color is going to be color.red, and we're going to title it upper band. So now, we can go ahead and save this. Add it to the chart. See what we get. Okay, what did I do? IBS threshold. Do I need to calculate? I forget to multiply something by 100. Low divided by high minus low. Let me just do a quick double check here. That was a step. High minus low. Close. Gotcha. IBS less than IBS threshold. What did I actually type then? Yeah, that should be right. Closed IBS less than threshold. Check here. Make sure I did everything right. First, let me check Donchian. This looks roughly correct for the Donchian strategy. Keltner strategy, I clearly have messed something up here because I'm not getting. Oh no, okay, yeah. What happened there? Why did that mess up? I didn't even change anything. I don't know why it messed up and didn't show me. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Yeah, so this is correct. I'm gonna guess something just went wrong with TradingView there and it bugged out. But yeah, this is that almost 4.6 profit factor. Yeah, so this is what you should get after coding that, and of course, it's going to be in a bit of a drawdown right now. But you would have noticed that in almost every other case, the 83% win rate holds. And of course, since this is a mean reversion strategy, you're largely just catching bottoms. There is also argument for trading breakouts near the top. So basically fading bottoms and then betting on breakouts of the top. But that's a different strategy that you can try on your own, just as an alternate breakout strategy, uncorrelated breakout strategy compared to our previous end-day breakout strategy. Yeah, hopefully this video helped you and was informative. And the techniques that are used in this video will also be good for creating your own indicators in the future and also doing plotting. And you might have noticed that whenever I was double checking my own code here, my code looks a little bit different. And I would say don't worry about it too much. This is just a more complicated way to calculate IBS, and that's partly because I use ChatGPT. I just told it to calculate or to write code for me to update my strategy, which was originally written in strategy version 5, or PineScript version 5, I should say. I just told ChatGPT upgrade to version 6, and then this is kind of what it spit out. And so you've got these redundant calls like make sure that we're getting daily chart data that I didn't actually have in my original strategy. This is redundant because I'm obviously using it on a daily chart. So yeah, ChatGPT is just trying to cover all bases there. But you don't really need to worry about it because this code is just cleaner. And you could also, in theory, go grab this and toss it on intraday chart and see the results there as well, because it's not specifically trying to grab daily chart data. It's just using bar closes, or rather just bar values in general. So yeah, that's just the last bit of clarification I want to make. But hopefully you guys are able to reproduce these results, get some value out of them. And if you're not part of the community yet, please consider joining because we have a lot of different money-making ways, a lot of different ways to trade. And of course, we're all about data and actually vetting that our methods work with actual back-tested proof. So if you have any questions, then the only way to reach me really is to join the Discord as well, because I don't really check my messages on YouTube. But yeah, hopefully this has been informative and you get some value out of this.